people around you, are talking for their own shop and from their own interest. And you, not even, as a president, you don't necessarily need to consider what's the good for the country, because that quite often, I think, doesn't really come into it. But you do want to make a decision which you think is the best decision which you can make. And as a president, you do not have the luxury not to make a decision. You have to make a decision relatively soon, because if you don't make one, some person will start to tell you that you have to make one soon. So those kind of things, I think, are a natural, almost like a magnet for inviting astrologers, psychics, anything you can get your hands on, religion. It's becoming more and more clear how religious people like Tony Blair and George Bush are, and Tony Blair is becoming more religious by the year. It's recently become known he's taking on his holidays books about religion with him, like really tough medieval works on theology, which I don't think is the best literature to have as a prime minister on his holidays. But those kind of things, you look for any kind of imaginable help, and a lot of these people, like Arthur Young and other people, they are clever. They have this passion for another reality. Some of them might have experimented with drugs at some point and may have realized that there is this other dimension out there, and they might want to make sense out of it. A lot of people also have had anomalous experiences as a young child. Carter saw a UFO from a plane when he was, I think, governor of Georgia. He, other people have had anomalous experiences. Those kind of things prepare you for something, and if things like remote viewing and magic are presented in such a way that you think they are actually going to become usable and useful and a scientific tool, then that is an extremely good, powerful, and important thing to happen. I think that's what I'm kind of like saying, why the Stargate Conundrum fluttered out towards the 70s, was that they were opening up the world to this realization that we were so much more powerful as humans, that we could literally empower ourselves, and with very basic techniques would have no more need to go to a priest or go to a church and kind of like ask him, what do you believe will happen after death, and that you could actually start to explore that reality yourself, which is to some extent what drugs on a very basic level do. But what religions such as the ancient Egyptians were all about, and that kind of thing is a very powerful thing, which other people who are powerful in this world, i.e. organized religions, do not really want to see happen.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, so is this the gate in Stargate, in that sense that we are opening the gate to this new spiritual science, or where does the Stargate come into this?
Well, the Stargate is kind of like everybody used the concept of a star of a soul. It's a very basic inborn idea that the Milky Way is the gateway of soul, is the river of souls. So a Stargate has that connotation that it is a shift into another dimension. It leaves our plane of existence and goes somewhere else, and it's a very close parallel to the soul leaving this realm and going into another. So that is kind of like a part of that bit. The original thing also had a connection to the Stargate movie, which of course is a very kind of like ancient Egyptian, very real extraterrestrial kind of interpretation.
Sure.
To some extent, that is more or less what the Stargate project, which is the remote viewing project in the 70s, was trying to do. They were trying to break down this other dimension, this problem of quantum physics with the role of consciousness and all of that into a very fundamentally basic operational level.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is where that Stargate terminology comes from. There's a few concepts, but for me, Stargate specifically refers to the fact that that was one of the names of the remote viewing project.
Of the project, yeah, of course. Very interesting. One thing that comes to mind is, have you heard of something called the First Earth Battalion?
No.
Okay. Might be not important here, but this was a guy called Jim Shannon, I think. This was a bit of another area in all of this. This was like, he was instrumental in developing a kind of a new age military. This was about, everything from walking through walls to, entering military zones with flowers, and choking them enemy with, PSI powers and stuff like this. This was brought forward, I think, by a guy called John Ronson in a book called The Men Who Stare at Goats. But anyway, that's another connection and another project, at least, that have been working within the military. So that there are a bunch of different programs running that I guess that they're into just exploring again all possible aspects to actually see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and I mean, to tie it back to John Alexander, the non-lethal warfare thing, is exactly, it's so beneficial on so many things. Just imagine if you were able to invade Iraq without having to bomb everything out of Iraq. That would mean you have a complete infrastructure. This might still be killing people, but at least your infrastructure is there. John Alexander is taking it one step forward, and he's kind of like saying, well, how about if you could just completely bedazzle them and kind of like almost turn a switch so that you can walk up to the Iraqi army and they will not fight you. If we could develop a weapon like that, then war would be completely different.
We could give
such a weapon is also extremely dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, we could give everybody a TV and they can spend their lives doing nothing.
Yeah, but I mean, the underlying danger there is that assuming that you were able to come up with a weapon whereby you can just walk up to somebody and you would completely immobilize them and you could do what you want.
Yeah.
Well, you could literally rewrite history and rewrite the frontiers of the world in a few hours if this weapon was somehow easily transportable and manipulatable.
Yeah, and that's why it might be then why they are also so very interested in exploring all areas because I mean, again, we're talking about a military in that sense. They have the the obligation to protect, either if it's a country or whatever, to all means necessary, and if they can, if they use the idea that they've been doing in the last few years of preventive warfare and stuff like this, I mean, there's no telling how far they would go to. I mean, they could potentially say that these or those people might be a threat in 100 years, so let's just take care of them now.
Yeah, and to some extent, there's I keep referring to this, and I keep saying I will do some investigation into this. But during the Iran hostages, when they were released in 1981, people involved have said that they saw an anomalous object taking part in the rescue operation by the Americans, and they kind of like imply that the Americans were using a weapon there which would kind of like somehow make it easier for them, that it somehow was emitting some kind of, I don't know, sound or wave or whatever. That was kind of making sure that the opposition react violently or military or in a way which could have led to several deaths.
Sure.
So we don't know these kind of things, but when you see of what has been happening with remote viewing projects, that was a project which ran for 25 years. Officially it ran for 25 years, and they never did anything useful. Nobody wants to spend money 25 years long if it never came off the ground.
Yeah.
That is almost criminal negligence on behalf of the military if you let that happen.
Yeah, indeed. I think another area that I would like to touch upon, but in one sense I don't want to go into it because we might spoil it. This is regarding the Hellfire Club and stuff like this, but maybe we could invite you back to the show another time and do a special on this or something, because that's another very fascinating area that again connects the occult with people like Benjamin Franklin and stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, again, all of these people, the power politics and esotericism almost go hand in hand.
Yeah, they do.
With the Hellfire Club, you've got people around Charles de Gaulle who became involved with the Priory of Zion. All of these kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Esotericism isn't something which is somehow not part of politics. It's just that because politicians don't speak out in the open about these things, that we sometimes forget that it's not there.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned you had a few more. You had a few books coming. Of course, we talked about the Canopus revelation in the first hour, but tell us a little bit more about your Pyramid book and when that is going to be out.
Well, the Pyramid book, that's definitely going to be at least another year and a half, if not 2.5 years.
Okay.
But that is just the book which is focusing on the Great Pyramid and its role in kind of like ancient Egyptian religion.
Yeah.
The book, The New Pyramid Age, is out on the 24th of August of this year.
Okay, excellent. Another thing I might maybe briefly could talk to you about is you're behind something called Société Périlleuse. So how do you pronounce that?
Yes. Well, in French it's called Société Périlleuse. I pronounce it in English Société Périlleuse.
Okay. What's that?
Well, everybody's obviously heard, who's listening, I assume, of Rennes-le-Château,
Sure.
which then became Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
Right, Société Périlleuse is about a small village in the south of France called Périlleuse, and we believe that the mystery of Rennes-le-Château should actually be redefined as the mystery of Bérenger-Saunière. And what happened was that André Doucet, completely by accident, came across a model which somebody sold him, which that person had found in a foundry. And when André Doucet started to look at the accompanying letters, he identified the fact that this model was ordered by Bérenger-Saunière at the end of his life in 1916. And he identified the fact that this model actually formed part of the landscape. It was a visual reference to a part of the landscape of Périlleuse. And so Société Périlleuse is trying to highlight the fact that rather than the mystery of Rennes-le-Château, we should look at it as the mystery of Bérenger-Saunière, and that Saunière somehow identified an intriguing location near Périlleuse. Now, the history of Périlleuse is extremely intriguing as well, because at one point in the 14th century, the Périlleuse family came out of nowhere and became the right-hand man to the kings of Aragon, and not only